I'm more of an old-timey person trapped in a young body.
How old are you?
I thought I'm interviewing you.
Okay.
Do you really want to know?
I really want to know how old are you?
Just guess.
That's
Hey everybody, it's me, Will Hart. I'm here with the wonderful, over-the-top, tattooed up,
yes,
almond butter full.
Wow,
Chris Cruz.
I thought you were making a reference to my skin.
Almond butter. Almond butter. I was.
Yeah, I kind of have an almond butter
just
complexion.
Ate some.
Yeah, and I did eat almond butter toast before this.
Good to have you here, man.
Yes.
Welcome to the Green Room.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's an Irish Global podcast. Did you know that?
Global.
Irish Global, worldwide.
We're going global.
We're global. Are you global? I'm global. Do you know that? These guys, we're global here.
I'm ready.
When you put global in a title, it makes everybody recognize.
Does your business card say global on it?
Maybe. Would you judge me if it did?
Maybe. Your Instagram handle is Irish Global Will Hart.
Dude, I'm not a good Instagrammer.
No, I don't picture you to be a good Instagrammer.
Thanks. What the heck? Okay, wrapping it up. It's really great having you, Chris.
Awesome. High five. And we're done. I imagine you as a guy who harvests his bees.
Well, listen. We all have our gifts and talents.
Yeah.
I'm more of an old-timey person trapped in a young body.
How old are you?
I thought I'm interviewing you.
Okay.
Do you really want to know?
I really want to know how old are you?
Just guess.
That's.
I'll give you a couple of things. I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
I've been married 15 years.
Okay.
And
I'm going to go 41.
I've been in ministry 20 years I'm
going to go 41.
Year. 41? No.
How old are you?
Way off. I'm 37.
Are you? Okay. I wasn't way off.
Way off. I mean, but I feel like 40s and 30s. Okay. How old are you?
I am 32. I almost forgot for a second.
32. Okay.
Yeah, young.
And you've been in ministry for a long time.
Yeah.
You got started young as
20.
well.
I worked at the school of ministry when I was 22 here. So at Bethel, I went to school of ministry when I was 20.
Okay.
And so then I did first year, and then I did second year, and then I got hired outside of second year.
Okay.
And I was 22 when I got hired.
So just in the beginning here, before we get too caught up in the weeds, you are?
Young adults pastor at Bethel.
Young adults pastor, but you also hold more than one title at Bethel.
Yeah, like everybody
Young
else
adults?
and creative director.
What does that mean?
That means
You have all the tattoos?
No. Yeah, because I got tattoos.
You have to have tattoos to be creative director?
Because I was the only person on the church leadership team with significant tattoos. They're like, somebody's got to talk to the creative team. And I'm like, hey, this guy.
He's got a beard and tats.
Yes. Yeah, and I dress nice. And so they're like, you must be able to. Yeah.
You do dress nice.
I do. I do pride myself.
I didn't know your name.
Not as nice as Corey Perkins.
No, but he does talk about you a lot. I didn't know your name, but I knew you as the dude that walked around with a hat, like the brim.
Oh yeah.
I was like, there's a dude that loves a brimmed hat.
Yeah, if I could wear more brimmed hats, I would.
What do you call that? It's not a fedora.
Not a fedora. No, it all depends on the kind of hat you have. Gosh. It has a name for them, but I don't know all the names. But I would like a wider brimmed one right now. If I could talk to you in detail about my hat collection. I have a friend. You know Jordan DeMarco?
Yeah, of course.
So Jordan wears a hat every day of his life. He does not you could probably count on 2 hands the amount of times he hasn't worn a hat.
Okay.
Wedding is one of them.
Okay.
So 9 days. But we did math because he doesn't buy cheap hats. And so he buys like Ebbett Field's felt hats and leather straps, all that stuff. So we did we checked all his hats. We said, how many hats do you have? Let's find out how much you actually have spent in hats. And it's like almost like $6,000.
Oh my God.
In hats.
Why?
And baseball caps.
Why?
Not like nice fedoras.
Why?
Baseball caps because he has a different hat for every day.
It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and he's successful in life. Yeah. But I just don't understand that.
Yes, he loves hats.
Yeah,
sports, all kinds of sports. So
I just talked with today. Well, we probably shouldn't say this because we shoot these randomly, and I didn't change my clothes. But earlier today, we had Jake Hamilton in.
Oh, nice.
And we talked about the whole Balenciaga.
Oh,
yeah. That
Did he stage that?
What?
Did he stage that?
Well, you have to listen to the podcast.
Okay. But now I got to listen.
He gave all the details.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure that dude staged that. The way it looked, I was like, he staged that.
I don't want to say anything, but he's told stuff on here that he hasn't shared anywhere else.
Okay, good. I'm really excited.
And you should listen to it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But he hit some topics there about finance and the church. And let me just say, if he were to stage it, it would be pretty sick.
Yeah,
pretty epic.
I bet.
And let me just say, he's an epic kind of guy.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to talk about church and finances. So.
I don't either. Neither do I. But
I don't have that kind of shoes.
Okay, so young adults pastor.
Yeah.
Give me the age bracket.
Oh God. 18.
Do you not know the ages of your...
It's iffish. It depends, right? It's like 18 to 29, 30. Like our average age is probably like 25.
25. Yeah. Okay. So
we have people that are older, but they're part of our team. So then that messes with numbers.
Okay. But your main demographic is 18 to 20.
Yeah. College age-ish, after college a little bit. Like that gap season of life where they're not quite like.
That's a jacked up season.
Yes. For a lot of people.
And then you do arts, directive creativity.
Yeah. But what's that right now is just starting. That's in the last like 4 or 5 months. Been helping with that. Yeah. Mostly primarily it's been young adults. Outside of that, it was school of ministry.
Married, wife,
married.
Kiddos.
Yes, my wife is gorgeous. She's amazing.
Every pastor has to say that about them.
Yeah, they have to.
I've never met
I used to hear people say, and I used to say it as well, like that I married up, and so then one day I said that implies that my wife married down.
That's true.
I was like, she's not that dumb.
We married
no way.
unilaterally.
Yeah, I was like, no, I didn't marry up and you married down. That's not how that, like, no. But she's my, like, I would call her now when I go places. I'm like, she's just the straight up dream come true. So you're like, all right, better than I imagined. Dream come true life. My wife, I have 2 kids, son that's 3.5.
She older than you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Younger.
Yeah, by like a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, she's Canadian. So we met in school of ministry. I got her a green card. So I
got my wife a green card too.
Hey,
yes.
That's it.
The worst process I've ever been through.
It's so expensive.
It's expensive and ridiculous, but anyway.
Yeah. And so you do all the paperwork and did all that. So we met in school of ministry in first year.
Okay.
Yeah. The school and so she's right now just crushing the mom life and then starting to transition into work now.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're a key member of really influential. It's true.
Yeah.
Right. You're a key member of.
I'm getting encouraged.
Influential church around the world, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how do you navigate that? You got a lot of alphas on staff. A lot of like.
And I'm quite a dominant personality too.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I had Eric in here, we were chatting. I was like, you have like 40 number ones.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Envy him.
Well, you're a part of that.
Yeah, that's so hard.
How do you navigate that?
He's doing a phenomenal job navigating the reality of what that is. But I don't know. I honestly don't. I'm more like I try to stick to my lane, just try to do what I'm supposed to be doing and lend my strength to where I can lend my strength to help. That's how the creative part of my role came to be, just like lending my strength in one of Eric's. You probably talked about it. His season that he calls his Dark Night of the Soul.
We went there.
Yeah, okay, good.
We went.
Oh, good.
We went there for like 40 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So
which I wanted. It was great.
Yeah. So in that season, I helped take up some of the stuff that he was doing with creative, and then that evolved into the role that I am with creative now. So just trying to lend my strength. No.
Okay.
No. But I've had quite the transformation, like especially the last few years.
I'm not making light of Eric's breakdown, by the way.
No, I don't. But it was.
No. We actually brought it up. I said, like, this is actually happening in a lot of leadership.
No, I didn't. I would say, like, when my kids were born, my first son. So I had been on staff at the church already for like almost 7 years, and so I was in leadership doing life, and then I think my son came onto the scene, and I was like, what is all this stuff going on inside me on a whole nother level? And so that sent my wife and I on an incredible journey of like deep spiritual formation. Probably spent the last 3.5 years kind of just devouring everything that we could devour in a part of a movement that probably initially felt a little foreign to me, which is a lot of the spiritual formation movement. So reading a lot of stuff from
spiritual formation. What do you mean?
Yeah, like Dallas Willard, Richard Foster, some of these guys who are bringing forward the disciplines and spiritual practices. And so I started reading them. Peter Scazzaro, and who's written Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. So from there, reading Ruth Haley Barton stuff on Invitation to Solitude and Silence. I've spent the last 3.5 years. My son's 3.5. Yeah, so 3.5 years, almost revamping. I would say probably a large majority of my walk with Jesus, like to where it feels like the last 3.5 years has transformed so much so that I just finished, even before I came to this, I was working with, talking with Gabe and some other people on finishing up what I've created was like a tool for people to spend time with God. Yeah. And it's called The Practice of Being with Jesus. And so there's just ways for people to engage with being with Jesus that's come out of this 3.5 season of deep inner work that isn't like, sometimes it feels like I'm going through like therapy, but other times it feels like I'm truly kind of finding what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And that led to teaching at Bethel's Life of a Disciple series, where we started.
I saw a little bit of that. I kicked that off online.
Yeah. So I started that series, meaning I was the first speaker to do it. And so then that kind of led to that teaching about holistic formation and following Jesus, not by name only, but by nature, and figuring out what does that actually mean to be like Jesus. A lot of people will reduce being like Jesus to doing what Jesus did. And so there's a question of like, hey, becoming like Jesus doesn't simply mean I can do what Jesus did. And a lot of times when we even go to do what Jesus did, there's an element, especially in the charismatic stream, that is tied to signs, wonders, and miracles, doing what Jesus did. Yeah. But then you have another part that is like, do what Jesus did, don't be angry, or do what Jesus did and be peaceful, and have the fruit of the Spirit, and then do what Jesus did, love your enemies. And then there's this whole like push to be like, all right, just love your enemies. And then everybody's like, how do I actually do that? And so finding out how do you become a good tree that bears good fruit has been the last like 3.5 seasons, versus going, how do I have good fruit? Going, how do I become a good tree that bears good fruit? Yeah. And so that's where the discipleship, holistic spiritual formation kind of like has been the last 3.5 years.
So you mentioned the Charismatic Movement. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a part of the Charismatic Movement?
Yeah. Well, I'm like, for me, it's really hard to, my brain goes like this. Theologically, my brain goes, there's no way to be a Christian and not be a charismatic.
Right.
But the idea that the Charismatic Movement is what I came into through an encounter with the Holy Spirit.
Tell me about that.
So in 2005, I was in the living room. Well, first off, I was upstairs in a bedroom just on MySpace, because MySpace was a thing then.
I remember.
Yeah, so I was upstairs on MySpace trying to figure out how to get with this girl. And so, and then my parents were doing a Bible study in the living room with like maybe 5 to 6 other people or something like that. Some cousins were there. I can't remember many other people being there. So
your parents pastors? I don't want to. Okay, I'm just trying to get some context.
Not pastors. We were driving like an hour every Sunday to go to church in Staten Island, where it was the only church that we would see that would kind of have anything my parents were looking for. Meanwhile, I'm doing whatever I want. Like I'm not the like end of the like drug addict spectrum, but I'm not like the kid that's going to church. I'm just living for myself, just doing my own way of things. And so addicted to pornography, all that kind of stuff. And so my parents are holding a Bible study, kind of just hosting it at the house. And this couple whom I've never met before, friends of my mom's sister, so my aunt, they came. And when they came, they said, hey, we have a prophetic word for your son. And so I was like, sure, I'll come down. And so I came downstairs and I sat in a chair, and they started to prophesy over me. When they started to prophesy over me, it was as if like, it was this impending like force that started to come. I could feel it like coming towards me almost.
Right.
And then when it hit me, and all of a sudden I burst over, like curl over, and out of my mouth flows a whole nother language. I have no idea what it is. And then I'm just tears streaming down my face, so incredibly hot and burning up. And then I said, while that is externally happening, internally, I'm feeling this completing love, like this love that almost completes the circle of my life. Just everything I was lacking just starts to just be made up in me. So I'm feeling all kinds of self-worth, which is so weird, right? Because we're like, oh, when we find God, we're going to be infatuated with God, which is true. But all of a sudden I find that all my insecurities started like being removed, and I feel this love that makes me feel valuable and cared for and all of that. So I'm just like overwhelmed with God's love for me, overwhelmed with like feeling this is the very thing I was needing in my life and never found. The only thing that I experienced prior to that was when I would go to church with my parents, worship times, I would grab the front of my seat because I would all of a sudden start to get tears as my body was reacting to presence, not even knowing what's going on. And so I would yawn to fake it, to try to get rid of the tears, to make it feel like I was yawning my morning like yawn. But then I had this encounter with him, and overnight, just completely different person.
And you were how old?
Oh, that was 18. Yeah, I think it was, or something like that. Yeah. Wow. Close to it. But like, overnight difference. Like I went from a kid who was up in his bedroom looking at pornography to praying for revival.
And like you don't know who these people were?
I didn't meet them beforehand. No, I know them now. I know who they are now. But beforehand, no. Oh, and they blew a shofar in my chest. So super Pentecostal charismatic. Yeah.
So where did they come from? I'm interested.
They were from DC. They're from DC area. They know my uncle works for the government, so they all are connected to each other. And they came up and they do like little ministry stuff with people, and they were friends of my aunt's, and so they came over and they prophesied and blew that shofar. And when they blew the shofar is when it actually hit me. That's when everything like happened, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was complete radical life change. Like I'm not like talking like, oh, it took me a little bit of trickling back in. Right. It was overnight. Just completely different life.
And you didn't look back?
No.
Okay, so
not once.
That was my story.
Oh, wow.
Not with the show.
Yeah.
But,
well, we can
small meeting, right? Yeah. My first encounters with love.
Aren't you so thankful that you have people who are committed to small meetings and don't need big sizes? Because you're like, that stuff, people like you and I encounter God in these places that are not stadiums. And we're like, thank God for people who are faithful.
Dude, you were looking at Matt's t-shirt, Summer Tour.
Yeah.
That whole thing came out of, we will go anywhere. Like, I don't care how much money you have or how many people. It's
cool.
We're going to go and we'll tour. And we did everything from living rooms.
That's awesome.
To, big churches with 1,000.
I love it.
But I find that those smaller meetings are so powerful because there are people out there that are hungry and they can't fly to
totally.
They can't go to a conference. They don't have the money.
Yeah.
But that hunger is in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so whenever you show up, there's so much. They're like so grateful.
And it's like the home group said. Everybody's been with our young adult ministry when I took it over. So Jeremy Riddle started our young adult ministry, and so I was with him just behind the scenes helping him. When I took it over, one of the things I did was started doing home gatherings. So we would give up one of our corporate gatherings to do a home gathering, and so and the reason why we even did that was I said it was rare, if not at all, that I found a leader that I deeply admired and had influenced me that didn't have some connection to a home group in their life.
Yeah, it's
that
true.
Was like at some season of their life. They may not currently had been in one, but at some season of their life, they were involved in some kind of intimate gathering for a season of life.
Right.
And so we knew that we've got to incorporate that somehow, that smaller gathering that isn't bells and whistles, that is just pure hunger.
Yeah.
That is.
It weeds out, small gatherings weed out spectators.
Oh, yeah.
And like it takes away all the fluff, everything else,
Absolutely.
And puts all the focus on
your
relationship with Jesus.
Totally.
And when you're in a small group, you can't hide.
Yeah, I think it's Leonard Ravenhill who talks about the idea that the strength of your church is in the prayer meeting. That to finding out who attends your prayer meeting.
Yeah.
That's your strength at who comes to the prayer meeting.
So you got radically saved. Right, and gave your life.
Yeah.
What brought you out here?
So I was, so after I had that radical encounter with the Holy Spirit, just hungry for God and like recognizing that it wasn't, the churches here where I was at weren't doing anything in
Where were you exactly?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went with my parents to one night of a conference and it was, it was in Cranford, New Jersey, I think it was, and there was Ray Hughes was there.
No way.
Yeah, so it was Ray Hughes. It was supposed to be John Paul Jackson, but he couldn't make it. So it was Ray Hughes, Todd Bentley. There were some other people there that were at the conference, and I went up to Ray Hughes, and he was talking about the Summer of Love tour, 2007. At the Call in Nashville.
Yeah,
and he was talking about it, and I said, you know what? Like, I'm going to go talk to this guy and find out about it. And so I go talk to Ray Hughes. I've told him this story since. And I said, I walked up to him and I was like, hey, I want like this, just like, I'm like 18 or something like that. And I'm just walking up to him and he's like, boy, there's a trumpet in your mouth. And I didn't even know what to do. And I just started shaking and I just ran away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know what to do with that. I'm not living in any like prophetic culture that I got prophesied over, but not regularly living in this thing that's like people are prophesying over me all the time. So I experienced that, and I go to the Summer of Love tour. But before that, I saw somebody's intern, and I was like, "Hey, there's something different about you, and I don't know what it is, but I just noticed it. Where did you go to school?" And I thought, I'm gonna go to Bible college. I grew up in New Jersey, so the Bible college that I grew up was like Valley Forge Christian College, and you're like just quintessential evangelical Christianity, and so I was like, oh, well, I guess that's the only really option. And then they said, oh, I went to Bethel. And I was like, what is Bethel? I have no idea what that is. So I went, looked online, and out of all the other schools outside of like a 4-year degree college, Bethel's website was probably the most legitimate looking at the time. And so then I was like, well, I'll apply here. They can't deny me. I'm a Christian.
Right.
Like, how do you deny somebody into a Christian school who's a Christian?
Right.
That was my thought process. Little do I know now, working at the school, you do deny people. And so, I found out about it. My mom was like, oh, that's Bill Johnson's school. I was like, I have no idea who that is. And so
Mom's knew.
Yeah, Mom. She knew. She knew what was up. Yeah, she knew exactly what was going down. And so, and then I applied and got interviewed and got accepted and flew out with my parents and the school of ministry in 2000. That was 2007.
Okay, so fast forward. How did you jump from student to being a leader on staff, which I feel like is most students dream of a lifetime. Man,
I told them all my scars on my face are my first year of staff. I got so many stories on being a young pastor that were, I'm like, wow, okay. I had some stuff being young. But the idea was I went through school ministry, dude, it's so real. You're I tell students, I'm like, you all think you're nice.
Yeah.
But there's a truth in there sometimes that comes out. But anyway, so I did school and ministry, and in first year, first year was radical for me. First year was probably one of the wildest years of my life because, I'm single, got friends who are passionate about God, first time in my life, while at the same time hearing in school that you can see miracles. Going all right, well, what am I going to do with my time if not just go and see God move?
Yeah.
So we would hear people come through, all these people come through and tell testimony after testimony. So I was like, let's just start going. So my friends and I would just go out on the streets all the time praying for the sick and see some of the most incredible things happen.
Right.
Just radical stuff, shouting out of car windows, just all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Practicing words of knowledge, just learning all this stuff and just growing in it. And so then we did that a ton. I got a scholarship to go to second year. And so then I went to second year. And then first year was I feel like I learned the acts of God. I'm all right, I learned how he moves in that way. Wow, power, the acts of God. Second year was the ways of God. I'm going alone with God for hours just by myself. No one, just less of an external power kind of thing, but more of an internal deep work and knowing and intimacy with God. And so then at the end of that, I planned on doing an internship. I was talking with Bill about doing an internship with him. And so then at the end of that, Eric was like, hey, what do you think about coming on and being a revival group pastor? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're throwing off my plans. One, I plan on doing an internship, but then two, I'm like, this would be amazing. And then I'm struggling back and forth. Should I do this? Should I do this? And then I hear the Holy Spirit tell me, if you don't do this, you're going to destroy what you're called to build. If you don't learn how to pastor.
Wow.
He's like, if you don't learn how to pastor, you're going to destroy what you're called to build. So I had to learn how to pastor people. And so that's what I loved about my 7 years in school of ministry is learning how to grow people, truly learning how to develop people, pastor them, and grow them.
Yep.
That was what my 7 years in school was, outside of the inner work the Lord did in my leadership as a young leader, kind of just dealing with all the things I had to learn and what it meant to be a son and how to be a good son. And so I learned in school of ministry how to pastor people. And then after that, obviously becoming young adults pastor. But yeah, so that's how I came on there.
Come on. So now you have how many people are you pastoring right now?
In young adults?
Yeah.
I say average people that come is 200 people that's average. So
that's a weekday.
Yeah. Yeah. On a Tuesday night, we may have 200, may have more, may have less. The young adults it's hard because you're also dealing with young adults. Mm-hmm. And so there's an element to that is we may see them once a month.
Right.
And so one person comes once a month, the other person comes 3 times, the other person comes every week. And so there's a spectrum that come on that.
What's the biggest difference you're seeing in when you got saved, encountered Jesus at 18 and the 18-year-olds now? What do you...
Oh, there's
is there?
Bethel's a lot more familiar than it was when I was 18. Yeah. People know Bethel a lot more. There's been massive events, all kinds of stuff. So I think there can be a tendency to feel like you know the stuff without experiencing the stuff. And so there can be a tendency to be like, I know it because I've sat in it, I've heard it, I've watched it taught.
Are you talking about the miracles? Are you talking about the heart of God?
The teachings probably more than anything. Because I would even say for a lot of them, they may have seen miracles, but the miracles I probably saw were maybe more in provision miracles. They're just seeing God come through for them in finances or something like that. But even just the teachings, because it's so, especially when I came to school, social media didn't exist really.
Right.
You had MySpace, but you didn't have Instagram. You didn't have any of these things. So there's such a widespread knowledge of what is being taught now.
Yeah.
That wasn't there. So you actually had to get there to be there to learn it.
Dude, I know that. I literally know that time.
Yeah. So you're there's a difference that is all right, I've got to be there to get there. So now the digital age, I did a talk at one of our leaders conference and I said essentially there's this modular spirituality happening where I go to your church for worship via online, your church for teaching online, and then I go to this community group. And so there's this like custom built spirituality that I don't actually have to be rooted anywhere, and I don't have to be hungry for God to move there, because I can just go get worship from this place online, and that just completely satisfies me. But then I don't ever I don't have to be hungry for God to move somewhere and stay there long enough, because if I'm not getting it, I can go somewhere else.
I mean, and you're seeing that a lot?
Yeah, I see people transient, like moving around different places. I would say that's some of the stuff I see. The stuff I see more is more like the modular spirituality is a real deal. Like how does church actually do church now when church is online is a real question. Like how do you actually move beyond it being something you listen to as a teaching time and a worship time, that it's just so like you can pop on YouTube and listen to some of the best preachers in the world, and never get out of your pajamas.
Right. So that doesn't work in my mind. Like I feel like I'm sounding like an old guy, but I'm with you. I don't see that working ever.
Yeah. No, I think it's like supplementary. I think it's like complementary to the reality of being rooted somewhere.
Right.
I think if it takes up your existence, I could see like places like in communist China, kind of like time periods, things like that, where I'm like, okay, online, maybe something that that the people groups that can't get reached, which in ways, I'm like, cool. But like in I feel a specific call to the like Western American church. Like that's like, people are like, I want to go to the nations, global. Like, I'm like, I actually want to figure out like here, like where, like, I feel like I'm called here. And I think some of that is the widespread of all like the digital platforms that make it, I call it cheap intimacy. Like there's this idea that you saw a quote online that made you feel good.
Right.
You watched a 2-minute worship set that made you become aware of presence, and your friends encouraged you. And you got this sense of intimacy and belonging and community that just isn't real. And so there isn't concrete relationships that happen that like your Instagram friends can't hold your baby when you're in the ER.
No.
Like when you got to go to the ER, your 10,000 followers who encourage you when you're having a bad day and you post about it, can't watch your kids.
So how do you pastor in the middle of this?
So we're trying to, like, what I tried to do is go, like, I took Bill's like MO, build big people, not a big ministry. So I'm going, how do we build teams and really invest in those teams and develop these concrete relationships? And hopefully that'll start to replicate itself, but going deep with this group of people that wants to go deep, instead of thinking I'm going to go shallow across the waters because I can't go deep with anybody. I'm going to go deep with this group of people and hope that it has some kind of multiplying effect. Interesting, but we're in the middle of teaching our young adults all about how to do relationships, not dating relationships, that's included, but in an age, you have to teach people how to actually sit with other people and how to love people and how to like realize, oh my gosh, like I have to figure out, what does it mean to create space for people and commit and not be like, oh, it's not super convenient for me to reach out to you today.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, it's not. It's not super convenient for me to pastor you in your mess.
Right.
Like we're all like, the convenience bar is gone. We've all said no to convenience. Like we're all like, it's not convenient. I'm like, don't follow Jesus. Like,
are you finding a lot of like in the middle of all this? Are you finding a lot of universalism creeping in?
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah, are you seeing that?
Where I see universalism come in is a lot of the deconstruction guys, like people who start to question. The other thing is like what I'm seeing in millennials and young adults, which I have. Like I'm one of them, right? I'm on the edge of that thing, and I talked to Eric about this. This is why I did a talk at our leaders conference on it, because we have a generation that's growing up and maturing now is in that place of maturity, like they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
And so where they were critiqued more than they were celebrated. And so you have such a list, and they saw, like, think about their coming of age season, and you have failure after failure of church leaders and political leaders.
Yeah.
You've got a Bill Clinton, you've got just church, you can just list them off, but you've got all these authority figures falling and being raised in that, conditioning them to go, what is authority like? And so when we say, oh, they have authority issues, I'm like, because the generation before them failed. So I'm like, if we want to have this unique perspective on millennials, we have to understand the context that they were developed in, they were grown in. And so they're very aware of what is wrong with them because they get told that way more than others. But in that, they have this deep longing for a what I would call this like authentic spirituality, right? A spirituality for all of life.
Yeah.
And not just how do I attend church, not just how do I vote the right way, not how do I sit in the right seat and give the right amount of money.
Yeah.
And so they know they're way more global. And so when they start to feel like nationalism comes in, things start to come into their hearts that didn't come into their hearts in previous generations. Right. And so what they end up finding is they have these questions, and previous generations were very, very like established in the like I would call like established in the organization, like trusting the organization, trusting the power structures, trusting the people at the top. This next generation, well, now not the next, current, like the largest living generation is millennials right now. And so this group of people who have these questions before are meeting the previous generation saying this, we didn't ask questions, we just did.
Right.
So when we ask a why and no one tells us why, we get called doubters, we get called entitlers, we get called, we have entitlement, or like, just why can't you just have faith?
Right.
And you're like, wait a second. Like I'm watching young adults give genuine questions because they want to own their faith.
Right.
And their questions to a generation who doesn't know what to do with those questions, stigma gets created, and then they go to people who are answering. That's where the universalism comes in.
Right.
Is because they have a group of people who are willing to talk to them.
Right.
And go, your questions are welcome here.
Right.
And they're like, finally, and then all of a sudden it's an influx of really bad theology.
So like you yourself, you obviously you read.
Yeah.
You're
tons.
like I saw it on your.
Yeah.
I did a little Instagram. I did a little Facebook.
Yeah.
Just because I want to see.
Yeah.
And I
read
could tell.
a ton.
I mean, there was a couple things that stood out. You love good food.
Yeah, good food.
You love creativity, and you love to read.
Yes.
And
read
so
a ton.
theology wise, are you going down that track? Have you studied?
So like I'm not like, I tell my friend is pursuing his doctorate, and I go, I get to read all the books I want to read,
right,
and not have to write the papers. So I'm like, that's the easy part. But when I came to school of ministry again, like when I was in high school, didn't read books. I can't even remember any books I read in high school. Maybe the book they told me to read. Right. I can't remember any of the books I read.
I don't remember any of mine, but yeah.
Yeah, and so when I came to school of ministry, and they're like, okay, you got to read all these books and stuff. Right. I'm like, okay. And then I can distinctly remember, I could take you in my journals and go like, right here is when the Holy Spirit touched my mind.
Right.
Did something to me that was unmistakable and irreversible. And I read 15 books in less than a month.
Yeah.
I was devouring them. It was like God was sitting there talking to me nonstop. As I'm reading other people's books, I'd be stopping to write down everything God was talking to me about. And so from that point, it kind of get a launching pad into just studying theology and asking questions. So then Dan Fairley is a big part of my life. Yeah. Dan Fairley, for those of you that don't know who are watching, Dan Fairley is part of the senior leadership team at Bethel. Yeah. He's a dean of BSSM. So he's a huge part of my life. Every Thursday I meet with him and a couple other guys, and a girl, Elizabeth. We all meet, we talk theology. I tell Dan, you essentially saved me at times where I had big questions that I'm like, what do I do with these big questions that a lot of my generation had?
Right.
That Dan would help me walk through and help me see that there is another way to see things than what I was told to see things a certain way. So theology is a big part of my life. I love it. Theology fits into the category for me. I don't like, some people are like, oh, you just love theology. I go, theology matters in spiritual formation because
100%.
That's where it matters for me. I'm like, not just as I want head knowledge, I want to convert that head knowledge into formation of my life.
Your theology dictates literally your entire faith.
Yes.
It's so important.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's, you're a guy that, the little that I've met you, the little I've seen you, the little I've heard, and everybody just talks the world about you. You're not scared of tackling anything, right?
Yeah, sure.
So there's a lot of questions that get asked about Bethel, like theology, like
totally.
And how do you balance that with your students? Do you tackle those things? Do you, especially in this age where stuff is posted online?
Totally.
You obviously engage in that. Your students obviously engage in that. How do you battle these things that come? They might read online, see online, Bethel's this, Bethel that.
I think a couple of things I think about when I started engaging with people is one, just because we're on the same team doesn't mean we all agree. And so that's what's shocking when people come and find out about us is like, we don't all agree on stuff.
Right.
And so we don't gather around how much we agree with each other. We gather around how much we love one another.
Right.
And so that idea gives room for a diversity of perspectives on stuff that isn't core essential stuff.
Right.
Like, all right, Jesus is Lord? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, done. Like that's not up for debate. Is hell real? Yes. Is it real? What is the nature of hell?
Right.
We can discuss.
Yeah.
We can figure out. And so there's a differing opinion on all kinds of stuff that isn't essential to like, all right, this is the core stuff we believe. And then there's stuff that is like core to Bethel, and you're gonna have a hard time being here if you don't see it like that. Not because we don't want you here and you'll get pushed out. It's just gonna be consistently uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The idea that God is good and you won't see a blame shift to God for the suffering you're experiencing.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable for people because it raises more mystery.
Yeah.
And that's where I ultimately help young adults understand if you don't have mystery, which is the healthy place your questions should land, is can I live in mystery? God is known and unknown, knowable and not knowable, like completely seen and completely unseen. Like the idea that I have to live within that space that is God is knowable and unknowable. If I can live there, I live in mystery, which means, like to Bill's point, Bill would say that if you don't have any questions, then you probably made the God the size of you.
Right.
So the idea that God is bigger than you, therefore you should have questions, should have mystery. What you do with those questions really matter. I was just talking to a pastor out of a church in Pacific Northwest, just outside of Portland. And we were talking, and there's a difference between I have questions and mystery, meaning I'm looking for myself to be anchored in faith versus I have questions that I'm looking to prove my doubt.
Right.
Like there's two different ways, right? And the doubter's doubt, so to speak, if you put it that way, the doubter's doubt is faith.
Yeah.
So the person who's on the doubt side, doubting life, the things that go on in their mind are, could this be true?
Right.
Could all of this be true? Yeah. And so we're hoping that you can get to a place of mystery where God's presence satisfies you. Yeah. More than your answers do, because your faith isn't in answers. And that's where it's like, for me, really important is I go, my faith is in a person, not in my answers. Because if it's in my answers, then I will be only as peaceful as my answers are proven correct. And so what ends up happening, life throws curveballs. Yeah. And all of a sudden my answers don't feel as concrete. Right. And then all of a sudden you're like, my faith is over. And I'm going, no. What's actually happening is it's an opportunity for you to have faith in the person beyond what you know. Come on. Beyond what you're capable of remembering or understanding. Going, okay, that's what I want you to find, and that's mystery as well.
I love Bethel. Yeah. Even at BSSM, I teach second year in a missions class. Yeah. And I share things like I share about suffering. Yeah. We like at Iris, one of our core values is we have an understanding of suffering. Yeah. And I find it like an open door to come in and preach things where students are like, this doesn't line up with everything. Right. And I find that I have a massive open door. And that's one of the things that I love about Bethel is there is so much
how to think.
Yep. Diversity.
Not just what to think.
And experience, and I just love the fact they're on a journey. Mm-hmm. And
it's interesting because even the suffering thing is interesting for me because there's a reality on in this past 3.5 years of deep spiritual formation, you realize like what is categorically like just pain and enduring of pain, right, versus the attributing of sickness. Yeah, to somebody. So I'm probably way more like you, than you would probably think on that stuff. But it's just, I think it's a testament though to the idea that what a lot of people don't understand about Bethel is that it is very welcoming of different perspectives. Like people might think like it's a place where they just shut you down, and they're just like, no, you can't. Like, no.
I've never experienced that. Yeah. Even with Iris, like we are very close with Bethel. Yeah, we are, gosh. And and we're totally different. Not different, we all value a lot of the same things, but we're totally different.
You're shouting, you're shouting different things
of our faith. Yeah. And Bill's like, come,
yes.
Like do whatever we can do to help you run. And so I love that. Listen, I know you don't have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. Couple things. Yes. Any mom, dad, grandma, grandfather that's out there freaking out about their kids. Yeah. Like, what is a snippet of advice you can give to them on how to reach them, how to pastor them in the middle of this and encourage them?
Well, there's a side of me that's like from the kid who encountered the Holy Spirit. And then there's a side of me who's like the young adults pastor. Right. There's a side of me that encountered the Holy Spirit. It's like, okay, your prayers don't go unanswered. There's that reality of not giving up. In the part for me of like, my parents never created distance in my dysfunction.
Yeah.
Like my unhealthy season didn't cause my parents to distance themselves from me or create a unique manipulative shame. Like my parents were buying into everything that I was doing, like being able to be like, hey, what sports are you playing? Let's get in. So they were so supportive. And so I never felt them in a way that made me hate myself for where I was at.
Pull back. Regardless of what you're
they were constantly in the game still with me, just regularly showing me like it's like the goodness of God that was leading me to repentance.
Right.
Just consistently
just
there.
having them in there.
Yeah, just being
and
in the game.
And your brother's in ministry too, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, do you have other?
Yeah, I have 2 other brothers. Yeah.
You have 2 other brothers.
Yeah.
Are they both in ministry?
No, my other brother is a manager at a coffee shop, and then my other brother is a cop. And so
I thought you had one that's pastors at the String.
Yeah, at the String. That's my older brother. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, so I got an older brother who's a pastor up the road, and then I got 2 other brothers. But then the other, to answer your question about them would be about young adults and talking to them. I would say create room for listening, where it's going, tell me more about this. And then the follow-up question is, what are you trying to protect? Like this is in our theology conversations, this is the go-to question, is when we're coming in with either a perspective that we feel like strongly or a question that's really ramped up, is go, what are you trying to protect? What is the thing you're worried is going to be lost?
Yeah.
What is the thing you're worried is like going away? What is the thing you're worried about is wrong? What are you trying to protect? What's the thing? Versus tearing this thing down and tearing that thing down and tearing that thing down. What are you trying to preserve? Like, what are you actually going like, I want this.
Right.
And being able to listen to them go, I actually just want Jesus to feel real. I'm like, okay, so what makes him not feel real to you? When he looks like a political Republican that's sitting and watching, like it's really hard for me to follow that Jesus.
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, got it, I understand. That would make sense. And you listening to that next generation's questions is the gateway into their encounter. Right? Jesus was very comfortable allowing a question of a person to be a gateway into an encounter. And so he didn't scold them even Thomas. I think I have a totally different perspective on Thomas than most people have. But it's the idea that
give it to us. Come
Thomas's doubt in that moment, right? Thomas, first off, Thomas is with the disciples.
Yep.
So we're not talking about a guy who's abandoned everything.
Right.
With the disciples. And so then in Thomas's, we read Thomas with the tone of rebuke, right? But Thomas essentially goes to Jesus and he's sitting there and he tells the disciples, he's like, I have to touch his hand and his scars. So Jesus comes into the room and he bypasses everyone with faith. He doesn't go to them. He goes to Thomas. So right away we have this unique, okay, what is Jesus going to say to the person who has questions?
Right.
And it's saying, Jesus, unless I see your hands, unless I see your scars, I'm not going to believe. But what we read, Thomas is going, I'm not going to believe unless I see that. Thomas is saying, I want to trust him. I need to see the scars of that moment to understand this is him. Like I need to know this is him because I'm about to give my whole life to this thing. Yeah. And so he doesn't have this like antagonistic doubt.
Right.
He has, and so Jesus bypasses all the people with faith.
Yeah.
Goes right to Thomas.
Yeah. And
he doesn't rebuke him. He doesn't go, Thomas, why did you have this question? Why do you want me to prove myself to you? Doesn't. He goes, Thomas, put your hand in my scar. Yeah. Touch my hand, touch my side.
Yep.
He creates Thomas's his question into a place of encounter for him to know him. And then he tells him, blessed are those who believe without seeing, because he's telling Thomas, I'm hoping you'll go into mystery now.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that now that you've encountered me, you'll be able to live without seeing me.
That's a good word, man.
And so he goes from encounter to mystery and is able to embrace believing without seeing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's happening with this next generation going, can you encounter him in your questions to lead you to a place where you still have questions and still have mystery?
Come on.
Yeah. At least that's what I'm thinking.
I know you got a jet, but I'll only let you go if you promise to come back sometime.
Yes, man.
Let's do this again.
Yeah, if you bring coffee and toast, yes.
Dude, I will bring you as much
I like good food and coffee, so it's good.
As you want.
Yeah.
You make sourdough bread.
Yeah, I did. It's really hard. It takes a lot of work. I make more pizzas.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like to cook.
Yeah, I do. It's good. My wife would probably like me to cook a whole lot more.
Dude, I just need to admit, I watch you constantly.
That's awesome.
When you're not, like, I come and see you live. I watch you constantly as you're jogging up and down the street right next to where I live. As I drive home,
that's awesome.
I see you out doing the CrossFit. Dude,
that's so funny.
You live, I live right. I know,
running?
It's kind of creepy.
I'm like, oh, yes, CrossFit.
No, yes. I drive home and I drive right past your CrossFit gym. And I just see you like running. Cruising around out there.
In pain.
Yeah, sometimes I'll be like at a restaurant there eating and I just see you running by and I just go, yep, this is my life choice and that's yours. So... Awesome. Next time I'm going to throw some shrimp at you as you're running by.
Just come.
I'll just be like, come on, man. Just come to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly.
Just come where I am at this table and we will feast together.
That is awesome.
Dude, CrossFit.
Yeah.
Are you sure about it?
Yeah.
I
did jiu-jitsu once with my brother.
I saw it.
Yeah, my brother freaking wins the championship in jiu-jitsu after doing it for like a couple months.
Of course.
So I go with him. First day, I get injured. I'm like, I've been doing CrossFit for 3.5 years, 4 years, and I haven't been injured. I do one day of jiu-jitsu, and I get injured. CrossFit gets flack for getting injury. Only people who don't know how to do stuff get hurt.
But I feel like that's everybody that's doing CrossFit. None of them know what they're doing until you get really good at it. But anyway.
That's true.
Jiu-jitsu, dude, go back to jiu-jitsu.
No, I'm all right.
Come on, you really want to.
I like CrossFit.
Let it be a family thing.
I can't.
But you can't choke anybody out.
We all used to play professional paintball.
You did?
Mm-hmm. Well, this podcast is never going to end.
Come on.
We did the rabbit. I just got to come back.
You got to go. It is time.
Yeah.
Chris, next time I'm going to bring a jar of honey. Okay.
Right, yes.
And you bring some sourdough bread or pizza.
I'll bring you pizza maybe.
And we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
My gosh,
seriously.
Yeah. So much fun.
I'm looking for more ministry invitations.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching. I'm doing fine. I'm just kidding. Thank you for watching.
That's perfect.
Dude, I just want like a wide brim hat now. Thank you for watching this episode of the Iris Green Room. Global. Iris Global. Green Room. You got to say global.
It has to say global.
With Chris Cruz. Hey, if you liked it, which of course you did, you wouldn't be watching it all the way through.
Yeah.
If you didn't, if you liked it, click subscribe, do all the things that the younger generation tells you to do at the end of a video, which I don't really know what, but do all the things that Chris tells you to do. And we'll catch you on the next Green Room podcast. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Great. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bro, we could go on for hours on random stuff.
We'll do it again.